Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. As I mentioned earlier, these eradication programs have had no effect on marijuana availability on the street. In fact, teens in the United States, more teens now report using marijuana than tobacco. And that is a shameful display of how prohibition just simply does not work. And we've actually been successful at reducing teen use of tobacco through regulation and control and honest education of teens. And that's the approach that we want to see with marijuana. I would like to introduce, on that note, Reverend Mary Moreno Richardson, who knows firsthand the harm that prohibition has inflicted in our communities. Reverend Richardson is an Episcopal priest and coordinator for Hispanic ministries at St. Paul's Cathedral here in San Diego, and has worked extensively in violence prevention and working with at-risk youth in the community. She also represents a growing number of faith leaders who are calling for an alternative to the war on marijuana, and speaks on behalf of the Interfaith Drug Policy Initiative. Reverend Richardson.
Good morning. The Bible calls all people of faith to be compassionate, wise, and people of peace. The war on cannabis is not compassionate. It is cruel, especially when it comes to our children. We are not protecting our children. We are sending them the wrong message. With the crisis in our foster care system, children of incarcerated parents are being neglected. These children are at risk of educational failure, of joblessness, and poverty. I now work as a chaplain at a detention center for undocumented youth. These are children from all over the world except Mexico. These children tell me their stories of how they leave their villages because they are taken over by gangs and drugs. These children have become the victims of violence and human trafficking. The war on cannabis is not wise. It is foolish and wasteful. We spend more than $14 billion per year. Imagine what if we could apply that money to education. We are not protecting our children. Drug dealers do not ask for ID. They decide who they will sell to, our children. They decide the quality. They decide where it will be sold and how much they will sell it for. The war on cannabis has given the dealers all of the power, and for every dealer that is arrested, if arrested, there are hundreds waiting to take their place. We arrest sick, innocent citizens for using cannabis legally to ease their pain. These cannabis patients are not the problem, but victims of the war on cannabis. A 62-year-old man here in San Diego with one kidney was arrested for legally growing cannabis for his personal medical use. They want to sentence him to 50 years. That's insanity. He is not the problem. I received a call this week from a victim of domestic violence the other day who reported that her partner had deliberately broken her arm, and he was given 1 year in jail. This is insane. What is the message that we are giving to our children? Our prisons are full of non-violent cannabis offenders. The war on cannabis is not peaceful. This war has filled our streets with violence. It is a war on the poor and especially on people of color. And our communities are no longer safe. As a former facilitator for court-mandated domestic violence classes, I created my own survey, and I would ask these offenders how many of them were under the influence of alcohol when they battered their partner. And out of 15 hands, 14 hands would go up. And then I would ask the second question. I said, how many of you were under the influence of only cannabis, marijuana? They looked at me like I was crazy. One of them said to me, nobody fights when they're stoned. Why would I get off the couch? This is insane, what we are doing. Also, we see all the violence in our streets. We do not see one 7-Eleven shooting another 7-Eleven because they sell more cigarettes or beer. Here in San Diego, we know all too well how sex offenders are let out on probation or given light sentences for their viciously violent crimes. And we also know all too well the violence on our borders. This is not just a problem for Mexico. This affects us all. The Interfaith Drug Policy Initiative, a national organization of Jews, Protestants, and Catholics, and we are here to support this law, and hopefully it will be passed, to regulate, control, and tax cannabis. Major denominations and other religious groups oppose criminal penalties for possessing cannabis for personal use. This war on cannabis is a war on the whole human family of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Richardson. It's clear that voters now know that continuing the failed policies of prohibition is no longer an option, and we are confident that in November voters are going to get out to the polls and they're going to overwhelmingly vote to end marijuana prohibition and begin a new era of effective marijuana policy. Thank you all for coming out. I want to introduce others who have joined this coalition in support of a new direction in our marijuana policy. Gretchen Burns with Newpath Drug Treatment Center here in San Diego. Margaret Julie Samley with the Drug Policy Alliance. Craig Baresh and Kimberly Sims from Southern California Norml. All of us are available for questioning if you have any follow-up questions. Also, there are some information packs in the back that I'd encourage you to take with you that have background information on what we've been talking about today. Thank you.